we had many different questions about it, and we spoke about the idea of Yud Akev. The Yud has to come down into the heel, Dafke here in Olam Haza Gashmi. That is similar to ויחי Ya'akov בארץ Mitzrayim, that he came down into the land of Mitzrayim, which is also that same type of Yerida of going from the highest level to the lowest level, but only then, when the Yud comes down to the Akev, then you have the level of Vaychi. And to explain that more, he started speaking about the idea of the levushim, that the mitzvahs that a person does in this world are considered garments, they're considered levushim, through which the person is able to receive the Gilui Oren Gan Eden. How does that fit in with Yafa Shachs B'tshuva Ma'asim Tovim B'Olam Hazam Kol Chayil Ma'aba? It seems to be that the mitzvahs are only subsidiary to Tafel and less than the revelation in Gan Eden. So we said really there's three levels. There's the mitzvah itself, the schar mitzvah that's going to be when Mashiach comes. There is the mitzvah down here that enables us to receive the reward in Gan Eden, and each one is a necessary step. The ultimate level is the level of the mitzvah itself, of what is to be found in this world of Mashiach comes. Before that, we need to be able to have the Oren in Gan Eden, and that's only possible when we have the mitzvahs down here. Because to be able to attain the level of Olam Haba, to be able to attain, the level of Mashiach's times, La'asad Lavi, the Gilui of the Atzmos, that can only be through the Ray that is Meir in Gan Eden. And that Ray that's Meir in Gan Eden, we get through the mitzvahs that we do now. Okay, from that, he's going to bring it back to the idea of ויחי Ya'akov בארץ Mitzrayim. So we're holding on the fourth page. It's page Ches, Ois Daled, line 24. According to this will be understood the idea that Yaakov lived. The true idea of life is in Yaakov, that we said before. Yaakov is the Yud coming into the Akiv, Yud Akiv. Inyan Yeridas HaNeshama Lamatik De'Lasik B'Torah Mitzvahs, which is Tshuva Ma'asim Tovim. It's the descent of the Neshama down here below to be involved in Torah Mitzvahs, which is Tshuva Ma'asim Tovim, and that's also in the ultimate descent, the level of Mitzrayim, the physical Mitzrayim in this world. That's where it was the true ויחי Ya'akov. Kivan Shaydeza Nimshach Iker Aschar Shuin Gilei Atzmus, because only through coming down into the level of Okev, as high as the Yud may be, we said Yud is the Yud is the level of Tahiri, Yud is the level of the Etzem, the level of Atzilus. It's still not the level of Etzem, it's the level of Atzilus. Still in all, when do you reach the highest most level? That's only when it comes down to the Okev. Because only through coming down this physical world, comes down the main reward, that's the revelation of Hashem's essence, like it says, this is also what it says, that Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim for 17 years. We asked, why do we even have to count and enumerate and make it like a separate category? 70 years he lived in Mitzrayim. Why doesn't it tell us how many years he lived in Eretz Yisrael with his father? Why doesn't it say how many years he lived in Eretz Yisrael when he returned from Lavan and so on? Why is it important to know the numbers? So he says, he doesn't just include the 17 with the rest of the years of his life. Rather, he divides them as something separate than the rest of the days of his life. Because the main idea of life is through descending to this world, and not just in this world, which Akev, the heel, indicates the level of this world, but even more so in this world specifically. It's specifically Mitzrayim is the Akev in our world. Beginning not just Mitzrayim in the physical world, but Mitzrayim, what it symbolizes, which is all constraints and boundaries of the whole chain order of descent, as we know that there's Mitzrayim of Kedusha. Shehu bechinas Mitzrayim alosh Mitzrayim v'gvul d'Kedusha, top of page test. That's Mitzrayim of holiness, the constraints and boundaries of holiness. And after coming down through levels that are constrained and bounded in holiness, v'ad l'Mitzrayim kipshutai, to literally the land of Egypt, Mitzrayim delumazah, Mitzrayim of Klippim, that is the ultimate. There's where you have the Gilui Ha'atzmus. That like it says, v'hainu shedavkai de'abirur hamata shein lamata menu, specifically through refining that which is down here below, that there's nothing lower than it. Nasa mitasa in the Vichi Yaakov then becomes the true idea, the real idea of Yaakov being alive, in a way that he was for 17 years. That 17 indicates b'gematria toiv, it's a numerical equivalent of good, meaning that the type of life that he lived over here was a life and a good life. This will also be answered, the reason of a question that we asked initially as well. He separates and prefaces the lower number before the higher number. He says first Sheva Shonim, and then he says Varboim U'Ma'as Shana. Instead of, let's say, by Avram, that it says first 100, then the 70, then the 5 years. Why does he say first the smaller number, then the greater number? Ki inyan hamiut, the smallness, the less number in comparison to the greater number. Moira ala yerida lifal es biramata dafke. This indicates the descent to affect the refinement of down here below. That's what's primary. Only through having this refinement of down here below, then you have the true idea of Yaakov's being alive. So therefore, at the conclusion of his life, at the summary of his life, at the sum total of his life, he starts off with the lower number, indicating lowness and constriction of this world. That's where the true life of Yaakov was. Isaiah line 11. This is also what it says, that the days of Yaakov were the years of his life, 7 years and 40 and 100 years. In this number, it's hinted the general idea of a person's service. The idea behind this is the The 7 years indicates the avodah that one has to do with their 7 emotional attributes. Like you need to refine them and change them. Shezau inyan sheva shonim. What's the idea? Shonim l'shayin shinui, from the word change. The hainu l'shanoisam l'hafcham l'kedusha, that there is the mitzvah, or there's the obligation, there's the avodah to change the midas. Sheva shonim, you need to take the sheva, the 7 midas, and shonim, and change them and to transform them to holiness. That's why the Torah counts and precedes the 7 years on its own, not only because what we said before, because it's a mute, and a mute shows on the Yerida going down into Mitzarim v'Gvulim, into constraints and limitations, but also because of Ishas Cholos v'Ikar Avodah, because the beginning and the primary Avodah, which the primary avodah that we're talking about over here is avodas habeinim, the avodah of the average person, the beini of Tanya, kimavur betanya shemidas kol adam, like it's explained in Tanya, that the avodah of beinim is the measure of every person. That's what every person has to strive for and can accomplish. And what does he have to work with? Hu inyan birur v'zichra midas, it's the refining and purification of the midas. Like it's explained in a different place. The main avodah these days is in the avodah of the midas. Shezeu inyan kibush sheva amin. That's why we were initially told to go into Eretz Yisrael and to conquer the 7 nations. The 7 nations of Knani, Aknizi, Aknani, Ayechivti, Ayvusi, and so on, indicates that each one corresponds to one of the 7 midas, and that's what we had to conquer and transform from Eretz Canaan to the land of Eretz Yisrael that should be holiness, because that's what everybody can accomplish now, or is supposed to accomplish now, to strive to accomplish now. As opposed to the avoid of refining the intellect, that is a difficult avodah, similar to what we speak about in Tanya today, that only the Rambam and the Ramban, the Siyate, knew how to use it out for avodas Hashem. So taking the intellect and refining it, that's a much more difficult avodah. That not every mind and brain can handle this. The main idea of the refinement of the intellectual powers of Klippa, Yil, Asid Lavi will be in the future. When Mashiach comes, then it'll be fulfilled where it says, that we will have, in addition to the 7 nations of Knani and Chiti and so on, we will also have the 3 nations of Keni, Knizi, Kadmoini. That these days we cannot, just like physically we did not conquer them before Mashiach comes, the same thing spiritually, what they represent, the intellect, they're not able to be brought into and be refined at present. So that's why we begin with Sheva Shanim. We're talking about the average Jew's avodah. We have to do things in a way of 7 years. 7 midas. Leave the intellect for Mashiach's times. But once we have the 7 years, so then from that 7 midas, we can grow from that. We start off with Sheva, we start off with the lesser, then we go to 140. I'll soon explain what that is. We come to 40 and 100 years. The Misper Kuf Mem, who Beis Pa'amim Shivim. The number 140 is twice 70. 2 times 70 is 140. In addition to the number of 7 years, there's also the number of 70. What does the number of 70 indicate? It indicates the 7 midas, the way they contain, the way they include in it the other 10 koiches, which means in the midas is included also the intellect, or else you don't have the number 10. If it would only be the midas, so then it would be 7 times 7, it would be 49. The fact that it's 7 times 10, that means you have also the intellect over there. That's not the intellect itself. The intellect itself, we're not shaykh to do now, but it's possible from working with the midas to deal also with the level of the intellect that comes down into the midas. And in the intellect that comes down to the midas, which is the number 70, there's base Bam Shivim, there's twice 70 Sha'ola Kuf Mem that comes out to the number 140, as I'll soon explain that significance. What's the idea of the twice 70? So top of the 6th page, top of page Yud. Why does there have to be twice 70? We explained there's the drawing down of the intellect and the emotions. Fine, that's the number 70. What's twice 70? The idea behind this is what you saw in Marash explains. This year is the 100th year from his first year of leadership in Tov Reish Chav Zayin. This Maimon said in Tov Shin Chav Zayin. Or B'dibar HaMask V'chi Ya'akov L'shnas Tov Reish Chav Ches. It was in the year Tov Reish Chav Ches, not Tov Reish Chav Zayin, but it's within the first year of leadership. So in that Maimer of Viyachi Yaakov, he says, by first prefacing the well-known question, David, that the number of his years How old was he? When did he pass away? He passed away 70 years old. And the Chazal explained that really David HaMelech was not destined to live. He was going to be a bar nafla. He was going to be stillborn, etc. So Adam Arishon, when he looked through all the generations and he saw that David HaMelech would be a stillborn, it says that Adam gave him 70 years. Then we'll explain soon that the Zohar says that the 70 years came from somewhere else, from other people. And the question is going to be, why twice 70? Get like similar to the 140 over here. So let's see it inside. Line 6, we find that Adam Arishon gave David HaMelech 70 years, or else he didn't have any years to live. Therefore, 70 years was lacking from Adam Arishon's life. Adam Arishon lived for 930 years. He was supposed to live 1,000 years. Why was he supposed to live 1,000 years? It says that in the day that you will eat from the Eitz Hadas, you will surely die. He didn't die in the day, in the literal 24-hour day, but rather, the day of Hashem is 1,000 years. Like it says in Tehillim, that 1,000 years in your eyes is like yesterday's passing day. So Adam Arishon should have lived up till, within the day of the Eibishter, up till 1,000 years. And he didn't. He passed away 930 years old. So why did he pass away 930 years old? Because the 70 years that he should have lived, he gave to David HaMelech. That is a medrash that explains where David HaMelech's 70 years came from. Now we can explain that there is actually a Zohar that comes up with 70 years from somewhere else. The Zohar, we find the Zohar that the Avos were the ones that gave David HaMelech 70 years. How did the Avos give him 70 years? Again, we have to make a calculation what the Avos were supposed to live and what the Avos actually lived. And based on that difference, and you're going to add it up, you're going to find the 70 years of total that was given to David HaMelech. So, if you remember, we have a Rashi in Chumash that it says when a person comes within 5 years of his parents passing, so he has to, and 5 years afterwards, he has to be concerned because that's the time that a person should be passing away, similar to his parents. So he says, Avram Avinu gave David HaMelech 5 of his years. He was missing from his years that was supposed to be 180. His son Yitzchak was 180 years old. So and Avram Avinu lived 175 years old. So the fact that from Yitzchak we could calculate backwards that Avram was supposed to be 180. And we also know that it says that Avram Avinu passed away earlier, so you shouldn't see the way Esav goes out to Tar Busra. Anyway, so he should have been 180. He was 175. That's 5 years. Okay, put 5 years into the mix. Ya'akov nasan loy chavches shonim shenechsru mishnoisav shoyitzrichim liskufein heikish nechai Avram. Yaakov was missing 28 years that he was missing from his years that was supposed to be 175, like the years at least of Avram Avinu. If he didn't live up to his father Yitzchak, at least he should have had it like Avram Avinu. So from 147 years old that Yaakov Avinu lived to 175 that his grandfather Avram lived. So the difference between 175 and 147 is 28. So now we have 28 to the mix. So we have 5 plus 28. That's 33. And Yosef gave David HaMelech 37 years. That he was missing his years because the years of Yosef was supposed to be 147 years, like the years of Yaakov. In the end, he only lived 110 years. Take away 110 from 147, 147, you have 37 years. So 37 from Yosef plus the 33 from Avraham and Yaakov, you have 70 years. So, okay, so we see two different places where it shows how David HaMelech got his 70 years. Either he got his 70 years from David HaMelech, or he got his 70 years from the Avos. The question is, the Rebbe asks, why twice? He didn't live 140 years, he lived only 70 years. The L'chura, line 18, seemingly, since David HaMelech only lived for 70 years, why do you need twice 70 years? Both the 70 years of Adam Rishon and the 70 years of the forefathers. But the idea behind this is the 70 years indicate, like we said before, not just the emotions, but also the drawing down of the intellect and the emotions. That's why you have 10 in each of the midas. What does the twice 70 indicate? There are two approaches and two levels of drawing down the intellect into the emotions. It's the upper view of things and the lower view of things. You can look at the world as being existing, but that's Das Tachten, but it's bottled to something greater to Hashem, or the Das Elyon perspective, the look from above, the intellectual understanding from above, is that really there's no world whatsoever. It's completely subsumed in Hashem. These are two ways of the eye looking. The eye can look from above to below or below to above. And ayin, the letter ayin mispari shivim. The letter ayin, not the word ayin. The letter ayin is the number 70. So you have two types of ayins, two types of looks, two types of ways of looking at things. Ayin shalamayla, ayin shalamata, the view from above and the view from below. This is the difference between the 70 years of Adam Rishon and the 70 years of the forefathers. The 70 years of Adam Rishon is the idea of the lower perspective, the eye from below, because this was already after the Chet Eitz Hadas. The Ayin Shana the Avis, in Das Elyon, the 70 years of the forefathers, that's the look from above. Ayin Shalamayla, the eye of above. That's also why both of them, Adam Rishon and the Avis, gave David HaMelech 70 years. Through both of them giving him the 70 years, so you had not just the level of the lower Das, but also the higher Das. So if so, why shouldn't he have 140 years to his life? Still, and all he actually lived for 70 years. The main idea of David HaMelech, which was the sphere of Malchus, who in Das Tachten, is the approach from below. Malchus has to do with the worlds of Bia. Bia is a level of Yesh. So its perspective is that there is an existence of the world, and a melech needs to have ein melech loyam. You need to have a nation. You need to have a people, that the world exists. That's the Das Tachten. And what about the Das Elyon? Das Elyon. Ayin Shana da Avis, what it came down to him, the higher level of Das, the 70 years of the forefathers. That's not the pure Das Elyon, but it's only the higher Das, the way it comes down and it's enclosed in the lower Das. But not the upper understanding of Das, the way it's on its own. But the years of the life of Yaakov was 147 years. After the avoid and the refining of the 7 emotional attributes, Heise etzlam shachas hamoichem midas ayin shana ba'oifen shenimshach gav das elyon kfi shum mitzad atzmoi. He had also he went from step to step. He had the 7 emotions, and then he had also the level of the intellect coming down to the emotions of Das Elyon on its own, not like David HaMelech that only had the Das Elyon the way it comes down to the Das Tachten. Therefore, he lived on top of the 7 years, another 140 years. Beis Pamim Aishana, twice 70 years. Because he had both the lower perspective and the higher perspective. This will become revealed in the future with the resurrection. Then will be the main idea of receiving the reward for the mitzvahs. This is where it says about Mashiach's times that eye to eye will see. Beis Pamim Ayin, twice Ayin. The view from below will be like the view from above, from the higher ayin. In a way that we will see directly and straight his face. All matters down here below will be like above, like it will be speedily in our time through Mashiach.